So what I'd like to do today, I'm just going to give a little introduction about the Course in Miracles. I know Kelly, is this Kim, your sister? Welcome.
Welcome.
Everybody, Kim's here.
Hi, Kim. Hi, Kim.
What I'm going to do is I'm going to do just a brief introduction about what is A Course in Miracles, because I think it's important, and then we're going to have a Bible class today. I'm going to read a story from the Bible about the fishes and loaves, and the Bible is filled with stories of Jesus and the principles and the actions that he used to do the things that he did, to heal the sick, to raise the dead, to multiply fishes, loaves, wine. He walked on water. You know, he did all of these amazing things, and he is the guide. And what A Course in Miracles is a systematic way to train your mind to a different perception of everyone and everything in the world. So wherever you are in this moment is a starting point, always. And so it's written basically in the most simple language. It has 365 lessons. Course in Miracles has a text which has 31 chapters. It has a workbook which has 365 lessons. It has a manual for teachers, and then it has some additional supplements on prayer, how to really be in the world. And at the most basic level, it's how to know yourself as God created you, at the very basic level, and to come into the memory that you have a guide, that you're not alone, that there is a very real presence with you. And that's the opposite of the way we've all been living our entire lives. You are born into the world, and you immediately see separate bodies, and you come up with defenses of protection and safety and getting along and getting ahead. And there comes a point in each one of our lives where you recognize it doesn't work. It's like holding up a house of cards, and you feel the heaviness of it, of constantly struggling. And that point of surrender is the point usually where the Course comes into your awareness. Like you hear it somewhere. Somebody tells you about it, or you... And it might not even be the Course in Miracles at first. It might be some other book. But somewhere there's an opening in your mind where the light starts to come in. And from that point, if you have your eyes open, you're going to start to notice that more and more people and things and ideas are coming to you. And so it requires a decision in order to see the results that this Course is talking about. It promises full release from fear, full release from conflict, full release from everything that is not love. And it's a guarantee, and I know that it's true because it's happened for me, and there's many people in this room that it's happened to. For many of us here in this Friday group, like what we do here is we practice. We don't come together to talk about what we think it means. It's always really directing people back to the book. So we sell the book in the back. We encourage people to buy the book. You need the manual. You can't just come and listen to another teacher. So I always see myself as a temporary guide whenever I have an opportunity to teach, that I'm here just to activate somebody's mind to see the possibilities for themselves, and then to step in. And so I really encourage those workbook lessons. So like Bill said, that I'm doing one lesson a day for the whole year. The last time I did them was in 2009. And I'm seeing things this time that I've never seen before. I've had the Course for 25 years, I think. And the simplicity of these workbook lessons is astonishing. Because it starts you off, who's never done them before? Is there anybody in this room that's never done them before? Okay, good. Let's see that hand go up.
You didn't do all of them.
I didn't do all.
But that's good. Like, to have a beginner mind and to live in beginner mind is all your power. Like, you want to live in that place where you say, I've never done them before. So even though I've done them 10 times, approximately there, around, like, I say I've never done them before. So I started on January 1st, and it takes you lesson by lesson, and it starts you off on lesson 1 with 1 minute in the morning and 1 minute again at night. And what it asks is that you simply look around with your eyes open and take the idea from the lesson and just apply it to the thing you're looking at. So lesson 1, nothing I see means anything. So that book does not mean anything. That chair does not mean anything. That camera does not mean anything. That wall does not mean anything. And what it says is that when your eyes light upon it, it just starts dissolving the darkness. So it's science, like it's quantum. So but what the human mind wants to do is try to understand it. It wants to understand when you get to like, my dog does not mean anything. My child does not mean anything. That's when most people bail on the lessons. My cancer does not mean anything. My problems do not mean anything. The fact that people are going to take my house away, it does not mean anything. And the mind starts just going crazy. And all I ever want to do, or anyone who's teaching this message, is to bring people back to the simplicity of the practicing. Don't try to understand what it means. In your practicing, the light of your dedication to just open the book every day starts moving things. So somebody came up to me today and she's very afraid. She's doing the lessons, or she's got the course, I should say. And a lot of old buried memories are coming up. Very horrific things that she had to do as a child, things that happened to her as a child, are starting to come to the surface. She's having nightmares. And this happens to everybody at some point. Like, you are going, as you journey on this path, start to see your world start to shift. It can come in the form of people falling away from you. It can come in the form of you losing things. It can come in the form of terrifying dreams, of a feeling of great anxiety. But what the Course says is that you need to be disrupted from the place you've constructed yourself as a human being, separate from everyone and everything. And you want it to happen, right? Everybody wants that to happen, but they don't want the process of getting to the place where they want to go. They want to just magically appear, and all their problems are gone, and all their bills are paid, and they've got the perfect lover and the relationship and the great kids, and everything's just la la la. And that's not like that. So it's taking you from a place where it's going to dismantle your entire thought system of fear. And as it dismantles, your world is going to reflect the dismantling. That's all I can say on it. Like, I can just say, it's going to happen. So don't try to make it not happen. It's going to happen. You must be transformed. You must be born again. And if you don't resist the changes that start to happen, you'll move through it very quickly. So what happens, to come back to this woman who spoke to me this morning, the light starts to come in. It starts to come in, it starts moving things. All those buried feelings, all the things that you pushed down, and we all created a defense system to protect ourselves here in the world from all the things that have happened to all of us. They start to move. They're moving now. It's moving. And the system's moving. And they're coming up. And now they're right in your face. And that's why the first characteristic of a teacher of God is trust. Like, it requires courage to do this work, because everyone wants to run away. Everyone says, I don't like this feeling. But that feeling of discomfort is the old self leaving. That's what it is. It's so you should be like, okay, I can handle this. Like, and you just realize, like, all those feelings of terror is the old self leaving. And so what I just want to say before I pass out, sort of shift gears over into a Bible story, is There has to be a decision on your part where you say, okay, I'm going to start being more vigilant and watching my mind and my thoughts. And that I am going to make a decision to make a connection with this presence within me. That's the first step. That you really just say, okay, I would like to know this infinite intelligence that is within me. In each and every one of you, as you, is a light that loves you, that cares for you, that will heal everything in your life. But in order to see it, you have to connect with it. So like Bill has been talking a lot lately about meditation. Making time in your day when you start to connect with that part of yourself and let all the world go. And the second step is watching your thoughts, becoming vigilant to the thoughts that are crossing your mind all through the day. So today is lesson 16 in A Course in Miracles. I have no neutral thoughts. What that means is all thoughts have power. All of them. Every single thought you have all day long is creating or making some segment of the world you see. And there's not a single thought you hold that just innocently lingers in the middle that's not doing something. It's either a fear-based thought or it's a thought of love. So it's either multiplying the illusion, and I talked about it like fungus. It's like over here, and you think it's an innocent thought. You just think like your thoughts of guilt are not affecting anything. Nobody knows about them, right? You're just having these thoughts in your mind. You're not bothering anybody. You're thinking attack thoughts about other people. Nobody knows. That thought is creating a world for you of more fear. And once it's started, it just starts multiplying. It takes a life of its own. And then you wonder why you have all these problems. You wonder why things keep breaking. So at a certain point, you have to stop the thing. You have to just stop that process right in its tracks and say, that's enough of that. And what most people think is, I can't help it. So-and-so did this to me. Listen to my story. Yeah, I know, I've heard it. Like it's my story. But at a certain point, you have to say, okay, I have to experiment with these ideas. Like I see it as if we're scientists here. Like we're taking these ideas which are very new and you start playing with them in your own life. You're not looking outside yourself to see what other people are doing. You're seeing, do I have the ability in me to catch a thought as it's happening and stop it in its tracks? And you do. You absolutely have that ability. But first you have to become aware of the thoughts that are going through your head all day long. So you're just looking at them. So that's my little spiel on the Course in Miracles.
Yeah.
Good one.
It's a good one.
It's a good one.
If you can pass these out, I'll try to see if this is enough. So what we're going to do, Bill and I, for the next 2 weeks, today and next Friday, is we're going to cover some of these principles. And we recently watched this movie, and it had this Mark Twain quote, which I loved. It says, "The two most important days of your life are the day you were born and the day you find out why." So this is the day you're going to find out why. Why are you here? And what Course in Miracles says is you've been sent by God to bring light to the world. And so today what we're going to do is I'm going to go over commitment. I'm going to go over complete dependence on God and trust. And we'll see how far we go with this. And the next ones are forgiveness, giving and receiving, daily prayer, meditation, and listening to God's voice. Vision, so you're setting an intention and a goal. Course in Miracles says the question, what do you want, must be asked and answered. And what the Course says is, how do you know what you want? It says, look around you. The life that you have and the things that are happening in your life are the things that you want. You're getting a perfect pictorial representation of the thoughts that you have been holding in your mind all this time. And if you don't like the things that you're thinking, you need to change your mind. So you have to start getting clear, what do I really want? And what Jesus says in A Course in Miracles is, if you really want to be happy, and you say, that's what I want, you only have to ask for it once for it to be true forever. Because when you want happiness above all else, you want the peace of God above all else, you will not participate in conflict ever again. People get to do everything they're doing, they get to be exactly the way that they are, and you're just not defending yourself anymore. You're not going there anymore. And then, so what we're going to do is, we're going to, at the end of today, we're going to pass out some cards. I don't know if we have enough, but we'll have more for next week. But we're going to ask everybody this week, during the week, to start writing a vision card. We're not going to do it here today, but when we come back next week, we'll work on it next week. And then coming up with a definite purpose and a definite plan. So, what I want to do is I want to read from Mark. And this is a story of the fishes and the loaves. This is Jesus, and it's just a great demonstration of how he did it. And he gives us steps in here of how he multiplied, how he healed. So the story, I just want to start off, and for you who were on Sunday, you've heard this one already, but I just want to give the metaphysics of this story too. So this is the time, Jesus already has his 12 disciples are with him, and he's been teaching for some time. And John the Baptist is his cousin, and his very good friend, and they basically were born at around the same time, and both John and Jesus came in with mothers who told them before that they were born that these little children were about to be born. So they both came in under miraculous circumstances. His mother's name was Elizabeth, and she was past her childbearing years. She was told she's never going to have children again. And then she got pregnant, and she was told that this baby is going to be the one that's going to help another one that's coming in, who will be the Messiah. And so then Mary got news that she's pregnant, and then Mary and Elizabeth met. These two children were born, and John the Baptist was the one who was proclaiming the good news that the Lord has come. And he's out there baptizing everybody, and he's this just outgoing minister. And at this point in the story, he's been put in prison, and Herod is the king, and Herod has a mistress, a young woman, and the mistress has a mother, and the mistress and the mother are, I don't know exactly what they are, but they're like witches. They're sort of like mystical women with power, and they're not pleased with John the Baptist. They don't like what he's been teaching. And so it says, so Herod is sort of in his castle with the mistress. And it says, for Herod feared John, knowing that he was a just man and holy, and observed him. And when he heard him, he did many things and heard him gladly. So Herod likes John, he likes him. And when a convenient day was come, that Herod on his birthday made a supper to his lords, high captains, and chief estates of Galilee. And when the daughter of the said Herodias, her mother, came in and danced and pleased Herod, and them sat with him, the king said unto the damsel, Ask of me whatever thou will, and I will give it to thee. And he swore unto her, Whatsoever thou shalt ask of me, I will give it to thee unto the half of my kingdom. And she went forth and said unto her mother, What shall I ask? And the mother said, The head of John the Baptist. And she came in straightway with haste unto the king and asked, saying, I will that thou give me by and by in a charger the head of John the Baptist. And the king was exceedingly sorry. Yet for his oath's sake, and for their sake, which sat with him, he would not reject her. And immediately the king sent an executioner, and commanded his head to be brought. And he went and beheaded John in prison. And he brought his head on a charger, and gave it to the damsel, and the damsel gave it to her mother. And when his disciples heard of it, they came and took up his corpse and laid it in a tomb. And the apostles gathered themselves together unto Jesus, and told him all things, both what they had done and what they had taught. And he said unto them, Come ye yourselves apart into a desert place, and rest a while. So, the reason I wanted to start with that, because most people just hear the fishes and loaves story and think, oh, how awesome. He had 5,000 people, and they all were hungry, and he fed them all. He took, a couple of loaves of bread and a couple of fish, and he multiplied them and he fed them. But the part that I think is important is why he went out there and why the 5,000 followed him. Like, his good friend has just had his head chopped off, and he's just heard. And that's the condition each and every one of us is going to experience. Something devastating. Something in your life that is just going to floor you. And Jesus demonstrates what he did. Like he said, he's centered. He's centered, and he says, okay, now let's go away to a desert place. So in that place when all the energies are swirling in your life, you go away. You say, okay, I need to ground myself. And he takes his disciples with him, and he goes away. And for there were many coming and going, and they had no leisure so much as to eat. And they departed into a desert place by ship privately. And the people saw them departing, and many knew him, and ran afoot thither out of their cities. And out went them, and came together unto them. And Jesus, when he came out, saw much people, and he was moved with compassion towards them. So if we take this and apply A Course in Miracles, A Course in Miracles says there's nothing outside of you. Everything that you think is happening to you is coming from your mind. So the 5,000 represent the thoughts. They're just when you try to go into a quiet place, all your 5,000 thoughts come rushing in to the place where you just want to be quiet and alone, clamoring to be fed. All the things that start coming up that are going to distract you from the quiet, they're there. And you can't ignore them. You can't ignore 5,000. Like he can't just say, okay, I'm still just going to sit here and, like Bill said, and act like it's not there. And many spiritual people do that. They start throwing course concepts on situations, and they say it's not real. None of it's real. I need do nothing. That's not what the Course is saying. And that's why Jesus is the perfect demonstration as a teacher for us. Because he has compassion for these crazy, chaotic people, thoughts. You can imagine 5,000 people, and they're all hungry. and he had compassion towards them. And that's what's being asked of each and every one of us. Like that we have compassion towards all the people in our lives, all the thoughts that you're having. Like all that fear that's coming up, you start to love it. Say, okay, I'm not going to attack anything anymore, including myself. And this is the first two on this sheet of paper: commitment and total dependence on God. So what happens next is it says, and Jesus, when he came out, saw much people and was moved with compassion towards them, because they were as sheep not having a shepherd. That's your thoughts. Your thoughts are sheep not having a shepherd. Who's running the ship? No one. No one's in charge. When you're in a human condition, the externals are in charge. And those thoughts are just running crazy. We did a great workshop. Monica and Elaine, you guys, that was awesome. They did an awesome workshop a couple Sundays ago. And Monica gave a great exercise that I loved. But she talked about your thoughts. And what did you call it, the first one?
I'm not sure what you're referring to.
It was the one about how
CEO and board.
everyone's trying to be in charge, and you gave a name to the thought.
The critic voices? Or not?
The CEO and the board.
The CEO of the board, right?
Yeah, so you become the CEO and you take the inventory of all the
Exactly.
critical voices around.
Exactly. So your mind has a whole corporation. It's a good way to look at it, and everybody's the leader. Everybody's clamoring, and you have to start. This is the mind training of the Course in Miracles. You've got to start becoming aware of those voices, and you start to recognize they're not in charge anymore. They are not in charge. The spirit and a life of you is what's in charge. And so you join hands now with this infinite intelligence, and you're really receiving now the plans for your next step. And so they were as sheep not having a shepherd, and he began to teach them many things. And that's what you're going to do with your thoughts. You become the shepherd. You become the shepherd for all those thoughts that are just running rampant. And when the day was now far spent, the disciples came unto him, so the 12 closest to him. So that's another thing, is each one of us have like 12 dominant thoughts. That are around you. And what the Bible is showing is the 12 dominant thoughts are still in doubt. Jesus is the only one in the story who has a certainty. And he's training his disciples to be like him and to show them where their source of true power is, God. Like Jesus just constantly said, I do nothing. Of myself, I am nothing. I do nothing without the Father. It is of the Father that all of this is happening. So he is depending completely upon God to do all things. He's just this channel. And because he's connected with it, he's receiving. And so he's giving. He's just, and that's on the sheet, like giving and receiving. And so the disciples, the 12, say, send them away. That's a human idea. Okay, we have a problem. We have 5,000 people who are hungry. We have no money. We have no food. What shall we do? Okay, and then so they say, let's send them away. And then another one says, well, let's go into the town and see what we can buy with the money we have, which isn't very much. So every time you're in a situation now where your thoughts are running rampant and they're crying to be fed, you're going to have the thoughts closest to you are going to come up with worldly solutions. And many of them seem very logical, but they're still very limited. And One says, send them away that they may go into the country round about and into the villages and buy themselves bread. Let everyone fend for themselves, for they have nothing to eat. He answered and said unto them, give ye them to eat. So he's saying, give them what they want. And they say unto him, shall we go and buy 200 pennyworth of bread and give them to eat? He said unto them, how many loaves have ye? Go and see. And when they knew, they said, 5 loaves and 2 fishes. And in other stories, other versions of this story, it says there was a young lad. And I always like that idea, because in your life, no matter what your problem is, there is a young lad who has everything you need to get started. So so often we think, well, I need more money, I need a better job, I need to get out of this relationship, or I need to wait till my kids have left, and then I can do all the things that I'm supposed to be doing. But in this moment, each and every one of us has everything we need to begin multiplying. And he commanded them to make all sit down by companies upon the green grass. So that sentence is what is known in Unity as divine order. And you need it. You need divine order. Because like so often in the Course in Miracles, you're going to see that it says, be still. Be still and know that I am. And so when all your thoughts are just moving and really asking you to just wander off, it's going to have to be you that tells them to sit down. You have to tell those thoughts, sit down. Sit down. And he ordered them in rows of 50s. Like he said, okay, like you guys aren't in charge here, I am. Because I know what's happening next. And that's the kind of command that's needed. And he commanded them, and I like that he commands them. Like, and that's what I had to do. Like, right now in the 40-day program, we just, I think it was on day 14, break up with the ego. And it says in A Course in Miracles, when you renounce the ego, it will be gone. So you have to recognize that thing that's been running the show in your life, the fear, that you recognize it and say, that's enough of you. And what Jesus says in A Course in Miracles, it can't be taken from you. You have to do something about it. And people say, well, I don't know how. You can't just get rid of fear. You just can't eliminate negative thinking. You can't just eliminate sickness. Yeah, you can. You just make a decision. I'm done with that. I am the Holy Son of God himself. I am the light of the world. God goes with me wherever I go. Like, how could you ever be overwhelmed if God goes with you everywhere you go? How could you be worried? The only way anybody can be worried is if you forgot that. That's the only way.
He also says when we call on him, Jesus, that is renouncing the ego.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And that's it. So what he said, when you call on Jesus, that's renouncing the ego. So Jesus, you can't see the same guy that walked 2,000 years ago. He was put on a cross and the body's gone. But he didn't die. The essence of Jesus lived on forever and lives now. So it's like he's in some different frequency, and he calls it abiding. And he says, follow me out of the place where you think you are in your own suffering, and follow me where I am. And he says, I can't come where you are. Like, you can't bring a solution into your problems. You have to literally leave your problems, rise above the battleground, and get with Jesus. And the way the Course describes it, I've said this before in here, is he says, reach out your hand and take my hand. And he will lift you up into a frequency of love and joy and gratitude and creation. And he said, stand with me in the place where I am. And from this place where you are just in joy as a child, nothing can touch you in this place. And then he says you're going to start calling all your other thought projections out of their own darkness. But you can't do it if you keep going back into the darkness yourself to help all those people with their problems. Like, you have to make a decision that I'm going to live in joy. And I'm not going to waver from this place. That I am going to live my life from now on in a state of absolute gratitude. And remembering that presence always. It says, and when they sat down in ranks by hundreds and by 50s, and when he had taken the 5 loaves and the 2 fish, he looked up to heaven. So that's the first step. So he took what he had, okay? So I want everyone right in this moment, I want you to think about what you have. Why doesn't everybody take their wallet out right now too? Take out your purse. I want you to just think about the money you have. You don't have to do anything with it. I'm not going to ask you to take it out or anything. I just want you to become really present with how much money you have. And if you have 1 penny, that's enough. Like, if whatever you have, it is sufficient to multiply it. So you're holding what you have. Whatever bit of health you have, that's what you're holding. So maybe 95% of your body's failing. You have 5%. That's enough. That's the loaves and the fishes. Your relationships. Let's say you think, oh, your relationships are not working. Well, everybody has at least one relationship, even if it's with your cat. Like, somebody has a relationship that's working. That's the thing you're going to hold. Okay? So you're holding what you have now. You're not looking at the lack. He didn't look. He had 5,000 people to feed. He had 5 loaves and 2 fishes. He wasn't looking at what he didn't have. He was looking at what he had. So that's the first thing. And then he looked up. Okay, so I want all of you just to look up. You're holding what you have. You're holding your relationships. You're holding your health. You're holding your money. You're holding all the gifts that you have in your life right now. And you're looking up. Any blessed. So right in this moment, I want you to bless what you have. I want you to acknowledge God, and I want you to bless what you have. I want you to bless the money you have, the health you have, the relationships you have. All your friendships, the chair you're sitting on, the center. And then what did he do? He broke the loaves, and then he distributed them. So that's the part that's important, the action step. Like what Bill said earlier, the Amish say pray and then move your feet. So then what you're going to do is you're going to start really being in the action of giving these things away. You're going to give of yourself. You're going to start giving of your money. You're going to start giving of all your relationships, of all your health. A lot of people, and I know this was me for a long time, is I'll start giving when my body is different. Like when I have more health. But you need to start giving now. You need to start really giving of yourself, because giving and receiving are the same. And he broke the loaves and he gave them to his disciples to set before them, and the 2 fishes divided among them all. And they did eat and were filled. And they took up 12 baskets full of fragments and of the fishes. And so that's, most of you guys who know me and Bill, you know my story, is that when I started this prosperity work 2 or 3 years ago, I had no money, none. I had no job. I had 3 large credit card debts. And I just decided that's enough. How long am I going to keep waiting for the situation to change when I have been told by the Course that there's nothing outside of me? I am the center from which everything occurs. And if I want more receiving, I got to start getting the thing flowing. And it doesn't start out there. Course in Miracles says everything you think you see is your own past reflection. So you're waiting for your own past reflections to give you permission to start being alive. And the point of really seeing the difference is where you say it has to start from me. And that's when Bill and I started tithing. The one thing in my life that was blocked was the money. That was the one thing. I had good relationships. My health was fine. I was receiving creative ideas. I was giving of myself very generously with my time and my talent, but the money was blocking, and I realized that's the fear point. And I started tithing 10%. And you give it not to receive. That's the important thing. You give it because you want to be participating in a law where you open up the channel now. You just really can see that you do have a storehouse. You can't see it when you're holding on to your things. But when you make a decision that you're going to stop blocking the channel, and I always encourage, just give a little. Just give anything you can give. Just start, just begin it. And what you're going to start to see, and I love when people come back here and tell stories, because they'll come back and say, you're not going to believe what happened. It's like, yeah, I know, it's a law. And so you just start opening up the channel, and the more that you remove the blocks here, like you're not stopping the flow anymore with your fear, you're going to start to see more flowing in. And then you're going to be giving in greater amount. So that concludes my talk. We're going to come back and just do a little exercise, and we'll take a break. And we're just going to cover a few interactive things. Bill's handing out little cards, and these are commitment cards. So what we're going to do also, we also have some, at the end you can take bigger ones. We'll get bigger ones for next week. These are going to be the vision cards, and we're going to ask everybody to start thinking about your vision this week, just when you have some quiet time. And the vision, it should just be fun. Like, you should just have fun with it. And what Jesus talks about in A Course in Miracles is snipping out segments of time so that you can just cross over. You can do that because time doesn't exist. So you might think you have a sequential timeline of time and space, and that you're in a certain place right now with maybe poor health and no money and relationships that aren't working, or whatever your story is, and that it's going to take a long time to get from here to where you vision yourself being as vibrant and generous and creative and happy, and you might have already decided how long. Like, that's going to take at least 2 years, right? But what Jesus is saying is everything starts as a thought in your mind. And when you become vigilant to holding the thought and living it, he's going to snip out all those segments of time so you literally cross over. And then, but it seems like it's now. And you don't even know that thing got snipped out. So like the way I see it happening, it's described in, I think, chapter 1. He talks about vertical and horizontal perception. So horizontal perception is time and space, where you're born, you had all the experiences that have happened to you up until this moment that you call your past. You're in what you think is a now moment, and you have other experiences that are the so-called future, and then you die. That's horizontal. Jesus says there's what's called the holy instant, which is the moment where you stop. You literally stop your mind from sequencing. So you stop in a holy instant, and what it says in that section is you're lifted up. It's like all time is happening all the time in that one instant when you're not sequencing it. You know, I'm a girl, and I live here, and I have 2 sisters, and I make this much money, and I have this much health, and that's sequencing. But in the moment when I just have a little bit of willingness to stop that, it's, the way I see it is like you raise, like vertical, and now you can go anywhere. Past, present, and even tells you, you can go to the past, and you can actually change your past. You think you had a horrific past, but he says, I'm going to take you back there, and I'm going to show you things you didn't see before, and you're going to realize you had a happy childhood. And some people are like, that's never going to happen, but it is. And then he's going to take you to the future. And what he says is that if you can learn all your lessons in the holy instant, you don't need further lessons to help you get there. So you might think, I have to go through 4 more bad relationships to learn all my lessons. No, you don't. If you in this moment can see the oneness that you are, and the wholeness and the love, and that you just want to give. You just want to be here as a light in the world, and you don't need any more lessons to help you learn whatever you think you need to learn. You don't need car accidents. You don't need to go through debt. You don't need those things. But people actually think, well, I kind of do. Like that's, but you can just, so it's like you raise up in the holy instant, and then you move, and you drop back down, and the moment's now. Yes.
Okay, so I'm coming from, this question is coming from the bias of or the experience of a therapist, okay? This question I'm going to ask you, so lots of prejudice from me, okay?
So she's setting it up.
So, what I witness here in this illusion that I live in, for myself as well, is that often, and I guess I'm asking, what does Jesus say about this? Yeah, I'll use I. It works for me as well as clients. I have to know what my resistance is to go and look back at it. What am I getting out of it that I'm not willing to give up? Not that it can't change. It absolutely can change. And it may not look like magic, like all of a sudden it all disappears, but I can look at what I chose to make of it and what I'm choosing to do with that now and how I'm dragging that along.
Can you give me a specific?
Sure. I grew up in, I grew up in violence. All right. I know what it is to be beaten up, not feel safe. All right. So I had this story that I went with for years and years. It didn't bother me. It didn't bother me. But what that was I was completely disconnected from what was. So I lived with a mentality of my fists up in the air ready to fight. And so not allowing vulnerability, so in relationships, especially intimate relationships, there was, I'm out of here before you are, or I'm out of here, I'm out of here. And hurt a lot of people along the way, because I would just bolt, right? So then I went 100 years ago to my first intensive kind of looking at it, a therapeutic program. And what I got was terrorized to look at that vulnerability, to touch it, to step into it. Because in order to identify that I had this incredible vulnerable story, I had to go see what the story was. And I was just marching with didn't bother me, didn't bother me, didn't bother me. So in this therapeutic program, I got to look at it, and I got to look at how I was so identified with being a tough broad that I wasn't willing to open up to that.
So what do you want now?
So from that, I got, like, I don't want that story anymore. I don't want to be in that anymore. And from that therapeutic program, I got the opportunity to let that go. And, because then there was a whole vulnerability about getting sober and letting go of all the toys I was using to keep myself in the illusion of being tough. But there had to be a willingness to go meet that healing. And so I was just wondering what Jesus says, because sometimes what I think happens in unity, maybe not in the Course in Miracles, but in unity I see what happens is, if anybody has a negative feeling, what they would call a negative or difficult, they're not doing it right.
No, but they are deceived, but that's the thing. So thank you for sharing. And Jesus says everything that needs to be healed will be shown to you in the moment. You don't have to go looking forward into your past. And you have described all of our stories. I mean, you had maybe a greater degree of violence than some others, maybe. You had a lesser degree than some others. And the only thing that matters in this moment is, what do you want right now? Do you want to allow it to be healed? And there is a presence in you that can heal it all, will dissolve all of it completely. And so you then have to just say, okay, I don't know if that's true, because I had a tremendous amount of violence, but then you just have to say, do I want to carry it anymore? I mean, I know you, and I know you're not a tough broad. Like, I see you the way God sees you. And what you've described also is, what I was saying earlier, is that each and every one of us has created a defense and a protection mechanism. And the scariest place where Jesus says you don't want to go is to the vulnerability, to your innocence, to the place of absolute open hands. So you describe this is your whole life. So your work now is this, like a total surrender, absolute surrender, and then just to be present in the moment and say, okay, I'm willing for when things come to me in the moment that need to be released and healed, and I'm ready to let it go. But you don't have to go find it. Trust me, you don't. That's sequencing time some more. To stay in the moment and keep doing the work. Like he's asking us, just going to read this. It says, except ye become as little children, means that unless you fully recognize your complete dependence on God, you cannot know the real power of the Son in his true relationship with the Father. So that's your job, is to be a little child again. You lost your childhood, right?
Amen.
Yeah.
And so,
They ripped it away from us.
yeah.
But you,
Somehow I think I've not asked my question
you've
well.
already done the work, it sounds like.
And if I had not had the willingness to go see it, I don't believe that I would be where I am right now.
Exactly, and that's-
I believe God was there with me,
Yep.
but
Yep.
you can be so lost in the forest, you don't know you're in the forest, and I guess, I needed those teachers of light in that therapeutic setting that made it safe enough for me to go see something I didn't even know.
Yep.
I mean, my war cry was, I'm a tough broad, I'm a white woman. I didn't have anything to do with that. I had to go back and see how I built that. And how so I believe maybe I'm certainly not evolved, that's for sure. I wouldn't be
That's
here.
not true. You are, though. See, that's just a story. And I thank you for sharing, because you do have to have the willingness to stand and let the fears come up. They have to come up. They have to be released. So the entire human condition is one of pushing them down and suppressing them and trying to put on a happy face.
Right.
That's a protection device.
Right.
And trying to be spiritual and trying to be generous and trying to be good. Those are like used by the ego. Those
Right.
are more defenses to keep you small. So except you become as little children, now little children don't try to do good things in the world. They're
They're
just
just
playing.
naturally generous. I
Yeah.
think children are.
I believe, like, for me, too, that each thing, listening to what she's saying,
Naturally.
each thing has brought me to this point. Like you said, you have to be, want to be vulnerable and you have to have willingness. Like, therapy at one point did help me see that I was trying to put up that tough wall. So I knew it, but I didn't know how to do anything with it. I saw it. And AA taught me, that I was using drugs and alcohol as one of my, defenses, coping skills. And then I was in AA a very long time, and then I did the Big Book Step Study. That helped me to look at my resentments and let all of that go and not have to look at that again. And that brought me here. Because I'm on a spiritual cruise and some guy tells me to do an awakening up in Maine, and I do what he tells me, and the next day my sponsor calls me and says, I want you to start doing the 40 days, like out of the blue. I've been asking her for 20 years to get me in the course, and she said, no, you're crazy. And that brought me into this room. She brought me here. So I believe each thing, and now I just want to be in that moment, and I do not want to harm myself or anyone ever again, because I am there. I want to stay there. I love this instant. I love that feeling. So I think every single thing was almost like, here's a step up, here's a step up. Oh, here you are. Now you're with Jesus. Now you got it. Now you got the course. It's time. And I think anybody that sees me and says, wow, I want to do the 40 days because I saw what it did for you or whatever, that's just where they've been brought to where they're supposed, do you think that, don't you think?
Yeah.
It's
What
time.
you said is true. Like, we only have a few more minutes here, but I just want to say, like, what you said is true. Everybody's experiences has brought you to this moment in that chair. That's the best we can say about the past. It's over.
And you say thank you.
And we say thank you for it. We say thank you for all that was. Because now remember what Jesus demonstrated with the fishes and the loaves? Bless it. Bless everything that happened. Bless all your protection devices that kept you safe. Bless everything with compassion and love. And don't attack yourself more. Don't keep bringing yourself back to that place and asking, why did that happen? Why this? Why that? Like, this is the moment. It's always a new beginning. This is the point of greater expansion. And so, what I ask you is, for those small cards, is I want you to make a commitment this week. I want you to write it down on that card. It can either be like a decision that you're going to make, a new way that you're going to be living from now on. Like, it could be a commitment to spend some time every day getting to connect with this inner presence. A decision that you're going to start being more vigilant with your thoughts. A decision, a commitment to forgiveness. Like, forgiveness is looking at obstacles, releasing them, letting the past go, clearing away mind debris. That's what Lesson 9 says. Lesson 9 calls all those thoughts mind debris, clutter. Cluttering up the channel that is God with all that stuff. And so all you have to do is recognize, okay, mind debris. I don't want it anymore. I want to have it be removed. And what you said is so true. You have to be willing to look at it and let it go. And Jesus is asking us, look at it with open eyes. And he says, don't call it by another name. Don't put sugar over your shit. Call it something else. Right?
What page is that on?
That's what spiritual people do. They're like, oh, it's okay. it's fine, it gave me all that I wanted. No, it sucks. But then you could say, okay, but I'm gonna call it what it is. And that's not what God is. The violence and the abuse and the betrayal and all the things that happen to all of us, those things are part of the human condition. And that's not of God. You want to get with God now. And so the forgiveness is what Jesus says in A Course in Miracles. It's the only thing, the one thing that's at your disposal as a tool that stops all illusions in its tracks. It's the only thing. So it's the most powerful thing you have that's going to just stop the thing from multiplying into like more fungus, more of that. And so this week, I ask you to just write down on that card a commitment. The one that's here on this list, and this is my commitment, and it takes practice. Like I still see that even though this is my commitment, that I will make no decisions by myself. I'll make all decisions with, I use Jesus as my teacher, but you can use any teacher, God, Holy Spirit, Buddha, divine intelligence, whatever name you call it, it doesn't matter. But what does matter is that you're calling on something that's with you and asking it for guidance, and you're being quiet enough to listen. And you begin to see as you do it, like it is guiding you. It is showing you the way. And then the next, if you want to take some of those cards and you want to start thinking about the vision cards this week, the way it works is on the top of the card, you're going to first you're going to transport yourself to a future time. You're going to imagine that everything's working out. You're living the life that you want to live. And so on the top of the card, you say, I love my life. So it's in the present, it's already happening. And then I'm so happy and grateful now that, and I want you to describe your relationships, your work, your money, your day. What does your day look like? What are you doing? And then you're going to start living it. You're going to start knowing that card is actually true now. Now, it might not seem like it in the external picture yet, but everything starts as a thought in the mind. And then we're going to come back next week, and Bill's going to carry us on with the visions. And I have one more exciting announcement to make for everybody. Okay, I'll make the announcement after.
I just have one quick question. Except you become as little children. Like that, to me, and I think to some other people here, we start thinking about kids and what the kids do and what our children do, and children play and they're wonderful and they're cruel and they're mean and they're angry, but they do it all like that. They do it, they get through it, they don't hold it. And then when it says your true relationship with the Father, to me it's like the true relationship with the parent, because no matter what, the child unconditionally loves the parent. The parent can never disrupt that love between the child and the parent. As us seeing the Father as our parent, is this kind of where that goes?
Yep.
Yep. Okay.
Well, that's it, because now you can relax, because now instead of you being in charge of everything, now you're giving true authority to where authority belongs, which is God. And now you're recognizing, like, He's with me, and He loves me.
No matter what.
Like that's a big one for most people, is that God is a cruel God, that God is a punishing God. That's not true. And so now that's the best example, as a loving parent, as a child that's free.